Hello, fellow comrades! In the 90s in Russia, there was a TV program dedicated to computer games and multimedia. I want to introduce this show to my English-speaking audience. You might find it interesting and maybe even nostalgic, so stick around and enjoy the show. Greetings. This is Bonus and I'm Game Over. We welcome our regular as well as irregular viewers. If this is your first time watching our show, then allow us to be your guide through the program. And if it's your first time using a television, then stay till the end and we will show you how to turn it off. We wanted to discuss with you the future of video games as we see it. We're beginning to witness how the thin line separating computer games from reality is beginning to erode. Yes, and as things like explosions, gunfights and wild jumps become part of everyday reality, I'm sure the novelty of it will eventually wear off. And because of that, we believe that in the near future we're going to start seeing games that are based on reality. Just imagine, you come home late at night, locking the bulletproof door behind yourself. You take off your helmet and put down the machine gun, running to your beloved computer where your favorite game awaits. For example, a game called Tram, where one winter evening you and your girlfriend decide to sneak onto a train without buying a ticket. Or maybe a game called Household, where your wife is too busy watching television and your job is to feed the children. Or maybe a game called Reading Area, where the goal is to scout all the city libraries for your favorite book. And before you know it, you're going to be completely immersed in this new, totally unreal, yet beautiful world. Today we're introducing a game called Doom 2, a sequel to Doom 1. And if they keep making sequels, the next two will probably be called Doom Retribution and Doom Resurrection. This new game has only one mission, but a very serious one. The interface hasn't changed much since the last game. However, this time around, your arsenal got refreshed with a nice double-barrel shotgun. In capable of hands or claws, this weapon is highly effective. In order to defeat the enemy, you have to know the enemy. We already mentioned that. Here, everything that moves may be considered a foe. And as it turns out, those enemies even have Latin-sounding names. For instance, the thing that people commonly refer to as a tomato is actually called a cacodemon, and the green crustacean is called an IMP. I wonder what it stands for. Well, maybe...
Intimate military police?
Intimate military police? No, that can't be right. Then maybe...
Interstate member of parliament?
And what does that mean? It's hard to translate. Something like a deceased member of parliament. Yeah, that sounds about right. And what about the green demon? The scientific term for the green demon is Hell Knight. I wonder, what inspired the makers of this game when trying to invent all these monsters? But I must admit, I am pleasantly surprised with the varieties of enemies offered. Special shout-out goes to Mankumus, who shoots plasma rifles while saying something that sounds like yum yum. Also the Revenant, who is extremely skilled in a hand-to-hand combat. The rumor is that the maker of Doom, ID Software, has entered a collaboration with Universal Studios in order to develop a movie based on the video game. Also, the first of 4 Doom novels has just been published, expanding the lore. In the final scene, you're going to come face to face with the ruler of hell himself. See that goat face in the distance? He's very hard to kill, since he resists most damage, including your self-guided missiles with armor-piercing cores. Worth mentioning that in addition to battling the boss, you're going to have to face multiple waves of enemies sworn to protect their master. I wonder if anyone has tried making friends with these strange inhabitants. And here, with a couple of more shots, we have finally achieved retribution. It is done. Next, we want to talk about certain questionable achievements made by questionable people in the area of computer programming. The rumor is that Russia holds one of the leading positions globally when it comes to virus making. That is because the viruses that evolve in a harsh Russian environment become most deadly to delicate foreign electronics. The effects are quite predictable. And you can only imagine what would happen if a computer got infested with multiple viruses simultaneously. They would no doubt have to fight to the death, evolving in the process and possibly even presenting danger to the user. The only thing that we can recommend in such scenario is to burn your computer. And when it comes to avoiding viruses entirely, our guest Dmitry Lazinsky has all the answers. Here's the thing. To alleviate your fears, I will tell you that there is always an antidote, and it's easy to find. Typically, it's easier to detect a virus than to write a virus. It's always easier to break things than to make things. And if you're a security professional, then you can disassemble multiple viruses a day. And if the virus was written in a day, then it usually takes 5 to 10 minutes to decipher it. And an extra hour on top to figure out how to name it, if the virus itself doesn't offer any suggestions internally. And if somebody spent half a year writing a virus, then, well, maybe it'll take a day to disassemble it. It may present some challenge. Dmitry Nikolaevich Lazinsky is the author of the infamous AIDS test antivirus. Instances are known where the virus makers would embed personal messages into their work directed at him, challenging him, so to speak. Of course, there are many such instances. In the West, there was even a whole series of viruses named after me, called Lazinsky. The first batch contained some light-hearted taunts and various references to my country of origin. I remember it having quite an impressive screensaver all across the screen. Well, I guess that's the price you pay for being famous. And now we're going to talk about an original game in the Quest category called Alone in the Dark, which translates roughly as Home Alone. The game is very entertaining, but that being said, we do not recommend playing it late at night, especially if you're home alone. The plot of the game is that of a traditional Gothic novel. You find yourself in a giant mansion inhabited by ghosts. But I must warn you right away that regardless of how brave you are, you won't be able to make it 10 steps inside the enchanted house without familiarizing yourself first with the contents of the sacred help file located in the game's directory. It contains puzzles, solutions, and various instructions. By gathering objects that are scattered around, you're gradually going to enrich your arsenal of useful items, which will come in handy. Evil monsters, such as this particular gargoyle, tend to be vulnerable to most innocent-looking items. For this one, it's enough to see its own reflection in the mirror, and it dies. I can totally understand why. And these are the zombies. You have arrived just in time for their dinner. Unfortunately for you, you happen to be the first item on their menu. Watch out, your saber is broken. How about we throw Matroska at it? And this is the infamous statue, Woman with a Paddle, only this one's without a paddle. And it's surrounded by deadly spiders. A peg-legged sailor, Darby McGrew. He's armed with a blade made of fine Damascus steel. When he was alive, he was undefeated. And now his spirit is forever cursed to guard these dark premises. Your hero is going to explore every floor of this enchanted mansion in order to locate and destroy the root of all evil. To be honest, it's not even a root but an entire tree located in the basement, close to the aquifer. Yes, it is quite rare for anyone to be leaving this mansion alive. On the next episode of our show, Once Upon a Time in the Wild West, Mad Dog McCree will tell you a story of blood, sweat and tears, as well as pure heroics. Next, we get to dust off our leather jackets, experience the planes of First, Second and Third World Wars in a game called Dogfight, brawl with the infamous Red Baron himself. Watch these games and many others in the next episode. Well, this is it for today. We're not going to hold you any longer. The game, as they say, is over, as in